97.3 Citi FM. Relevant radio, always.
So to address the higher cost of news production in an era where listeners demand more, we've come up with three things. The first one I call strategic alliances. So whereas the previous slide had only Citi FM, Man Mountain, we've reduced the size of Citi and brought on board people like journalists of human rights, a Canadian-based CSO, who bring in trainers every year to train some of our reporters in doing some very smart things. So they teach us data mining. Some of our guys are doing documentaries. Some of the guys are depicting stories with infographics. So you find out that we didn't pay JHR for this, but JHR comes with support, and all they want is for you to accommodate their trainings. Or you have partners like CDD who come together with you to produce pre-election parliamentary debates across over 15 constituencies. We could never have done that with our own resources. So that's the strategic partnership I'm talking about. Possibly the most effective has been one we did with a mobile research company called Photo. It's based in Kumasi. So what happens is, when you interview a politician and you tell him that most Ghanaians are not happy with doing so, they're like, well, it's just your callers. How do you know that? We didn't have a scientific way of doing research until Voto came along. And for the past couple of years, Voto, with their mobile technology, sit with us and craft simple questions to mobile phone users. Anything from corruption, to attitudes to doomsday, to what you think of the president. And this is scientific. And we are able to use that in our content. So we've managed to deal with the lack of resources, not by getting more money, but by getting strategic alliances with this bunch. So this is like a year and a half ago. Then it grew bigger. Not only did we get strategic alliances, we actually got physical support. So for example, there's this organization called Star Ghana. They believe in doing stories, not just for doing sake, but tracking results, looking at impact. So they gave us money to train 30 citizen journalists, send them back to their communities to do stories that we can track. We can't finish talking about what Star Ghana has done with us, but one example. So one of the girls we trained was a 19-year-old first-year student at AUCC. She's called Roberta. She says from her community, Gomwa Akoti, she was the only member of her group that went to a tertiary institution. Most of the girls got pregnant. So her story after the training and after the recorder was given to her was to go back to her village and find out how come I was the only one in university. And this is a 19-year-old student. Now, there's no way radio stations who are competing for airtime and money can train somebody and put them out there. So for Star Ghana to come on board, give us money to train Roberta. Not only did she tell the story of Goma Akoti, which actually is her own story, Roberta partnered with Sarah Yabua, who will be talking to you later this afternoon. And they did a community outreach, talking to pregnant women. She's 19. She's not just a student journalist. She's almost like a social worker. Partnered with Sarah, and they did a community outreach to pregnant teenagers. So just by Star Ghana's support, we are not just telling stories, magnifying local stories. We are equipping and giving young reporters a new look to what they can do. We've had such alliances with people like Citi's Alliance, where some of the stories we could never have told on our own, through partnerships with the Bernardino Channel 2 Communications. 13 consistent weeks focused on and sexy topics that don't bring money. The challenge of radio and media for the 21st century would mean that we must find a middle way between profitability and social conscience. Very similar to what the finance bill called impact investing. You are not strictly commercial, but neither are you strictly community. So when Star Ghana gives you money, you are to report results. You are to track changes, and you are to let them see outcomes. It's changed the way we see our job. I used to see myself as a questioner. Come on air, ask ministers questions, give people a chance to respond. But now, we are following stories. We are tracking changes. We are thinking like CSOs. And all this is happening in a commercial environment. I think one of the most exciting things for me that has happened, and that's Roberta in the top right screen, is the last S. So yes, we have strategic alliances, yes, we have support, but our networks have grown so much that competition alone does not make sense. So in the past couple of months, we've shared resources with competitors. So for example, Radio Gold is a competitor to Citi FM, but we've partnered to interview the finance minister 3 times from an outdoor location. Because the needs we face as radio stations are so high and the resources are so few, the definition of competition has to change. So you see Al-Hassan Suhini, who's supposed to be a competitor, we do a joint podcast, and when I ask the question that the finance minister wants to dodge, he comes in with his question. So these are 2 competitors who are collaborating to host shows. And I think that's really the future of radio, where the traditional conceptualization of competition has to change to co-opetition. So I'm looking forward to the day where some of our fiercest rivals will work with us, because if you work with CSOs, it's not about getting the story first. It's not about being the leader. It's about actually getting the results. And if those results will come from working with competitors, so be it. So you notice that the network has grown so wide. Now we have Daily Graphic, we have Business and Financial Times, organizations that traditionally would not work with, because the challenges are essential for all media, and therefore we need to lay aside all petty rivalries. Our final comment, and my final comment this afternoon for you is, because radio is the most dominant medium in the whole of Africa, over 70% of Ghanaians get their news from radio. And because radio is the cheapest medium to use, we cannot afford to let radio die because commercial radio stations can't pay bills. What we need to learn to do as radio managers is to rethink what we are in the business for. Instead of simply competing and looking for the big story and getting the credits on other networks, what we should do is to pool resources with other radio stations and media houses and get an impact made. We also need to change the way we measure impact, because if someone is going to give you $80,000 for 3 months, you can't just tell him, I did an interview and 200,000 people listen. They want to know what exactly changed after that money was spent. So we are forced to redefine our role on air. It's not just about questions. It's not just about interviews. It's not just about a platform to bloviate and talk. It's about following a story and getting it to its logical conclusion. So for the young journalists here who will be wondering, what will radio look like in the next 15 years? A lot of the things you know about radio are not going to be the same. But one thing I can assure you is, if this kind of strategic alliances, this kind of support, and this kind of resource sharing I've spoken about continues, even if the internet comes and takes over, radio will still survive, because we would have found new ways of telling stories and changing lives without all the money people thought we should have. Thank you very much.
97.3 Citi FM. Relevant radio, always.